Welcome back. Now, the US government is once again facing a shutdown. It's a political failure that highlights deep dysfunction in Washington. But this isn't just an American domestic crisis. When the world's largest economy grinds to a halt, the consequences ripple outward, meaning that it could affect everything from global markets to geopolitical stability here within Asia. Now, joining me to break down these issues further is Professor Wong HUAT, Professor and Deputy Head of Strategy at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network Asia headquarters at Sunway University. Hi, Prof. Thanks for joining us and thanks for doing this. Now, beyond the headline numbers, what is the real cost of this government dysfunction to the American people, and how does this threat of a prolonged shutdown of a government mean in terms of furloughs and delayed services and damage to agencies like they have over in America, the FDA and the CDC? Again, doesn't this erode public trust within their own government and potentially its own democratic process?
Yes, it certainly has impact on Americans' public life because that other than what is considered as essential services like military, police, social welfare, postal services, others would be shut down. It might be extended to more as you go on. And this, of course, would cause inconveniences and troubles to the American public. For example, parks would be shut down, mills would be shut down, or it would not be attended with support. And important thing is, for example, Department of Labor, which produce the employment research number, those research would be delayed and have impact then on the Fed in deciding the interest rate. So the impacts is actually far-reaching beyond what we see. But why would this happen? This goes back to the rules in America on the budget process. Now, first of all, in all government, the most important thing is actually money. You cannot run a government without money. In a parliamentary system, this is easily tied down to the government confidence. If a government, a parliamentary government like ours, has lost the parliament's support on the budget, it's called loss of support. It's akin to loss of confidence, and then you would have to have a new government, and the problem would be resolved. In America, the whole idea here is that if you have a funding gap before 1980, you would just assume the gap would be automatically closed, meaning whatever shortfall would be paid back later, approved by the Congress. But since 1980, because of the legal opinion proposed or tabled by the Attorney General Benjamin Civility, that it has become a case where the Congress can resist not to, that you cannot assume a funding gap would actually automatically be covered later, and therefore some government agency would have to be shut down. And this opened up the case for the party that control the Congress to challenge the president's power. So this is how it happened. And the rest of the world, we would find unimaginable that a superpower that would actually allow its government agency to shut down. But this is part of the US presidential system is really one that you have a separation of power because the legislative and the executive branches are separately elected. So they have separate legitimacy to check on each other. And the whole idea for the system to work is that while you have full check and balance, the party elites, the political class, are mature enough to seek compromises. So even in the 80s, when the shutdown began to happen, it normally lasted less than a week. But over time, this has become longer. And the last shutdown during Trump's first term lasted for 35 days.
That's right. The US government has had 20 funding gaps so far, resulting in 10 shutdowns since 1976. Of course, the longest lasting 35 days, as you've pointed out, which was also under Trump's leadership. Now, the Democrats and the Republicans, they remain divided over spending priorities. The Democrats are pushing for protecting healthcare, for protecting their social programs as well as foreign aid, while the Republicans are saying we should have more cuts. And so, of course, as you've pointed out as well, there is that sort of deadlock at this point of time. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has threatened to use the budget deadlock to push through mass layoffs of federal employees, meaning to say as well that there are many on furlough, there are many on unpaid leave, and while the wage earners are put in limbo. While all of this is happening, Chin Huat, the US budget process is designed for consensus. Yet now what we're seeing is the budget has been weaponized for these difference in opinions, so to say, or rather for partisan gains. Do you see this as a permanent feature within the US government or its democracy, or could this expand to other democracies around the world?
This is something very specifically American. To my knowledge, there's no other country has such phenomenon of government shutdown, especially if you have a whenever the budget is not passed through, accepted, supported by the parliament, you just basically have a government collapse and parliamentary system allow a mid-term change of government. The problem with presidential system is, of course, it's much more rigid, so you could have standoff, but most other countries wouldn't have shutdown. The problem with America is that this is a very sophisticated system built on the idea of division, that divisions produce check and balances, produce choices for different, for democracy to work. Now that require a great degree of maturity, not only among the people, but also on the political elites. This is what exactly lacking today. What we are seeing, not just from this, but from President Trump attacks on the American government system itself, this is almost an empire committing long-term suicide.
Putting Asia on the lens with the focus on Malaysia, what does this simply mean for us?
It basically sent a message that America is greatly unreliable. No country is completely altruistic to help other country, but an important ally is someone that would behave predictably. So when America in the past was act as a predictable hegemon, then other countries that are allied to America can count on America to behave certain. We have seen how America treats its ally on the fronts of tariff and investment is already troubling. What we are seeing now is that problem unfolded in America itself. This is, of course, new. We have seen that the polarization in America since the time of George Bush Jr., but things have got worse. And this come back to a big question. American system, despite its decentralization and so on, is quite majoritarian. And how can America solve this problem? Because the society is no longer normal distribution, but increasingly not a bell curve, but increasingly it's a bipolar M-shaped populations where the society is broken down into two main blocks that do not see eye to eye.
Chin Huat, as we speak about Asia and the region, of course, ASEAN as well comes into this conversation. What would this mean to our economic effects? Would there be ripple effects that would definitely or presumably be affecting us in the very near future, considering we do not know how long this hang will be?
Yes, exactly that. We do not know how far this would go, whether this would end in weeks, in days or in weeks, or it drags on to months. Of course, this will be damaging for America. For example, the Department of Labor employment data would affect the decisions of Feds in deciding interest rate and so on. And the impacts would be felt by us in along the way. However, in the short run, it probably would not affect those countries that have already settled the tariff deals with America, not be affected. The greater challenge to uh, like us would actually be Trump himself, whether he would change his mind or want to introduce any new policy measures. But for countries like Taiwan, which is still dealing with America on this, they'll be affected.
Chin Hua, thank you for your time and for weighing in. Of course, this also is a developing story, and we will be bringing updates right here on Bernama. Thanks for your time, and I'm sure we'll be speaking soon again.
Thank you very much.
Well, more global updates in just a moment. You're watching The World on Bernama TV. Stay tuned.